Dhe kelokim shomea
Dear friends, dear Sasha, my wife Linda and I feel very, very privileged to return to Israel after 7 years. And while entering here, I was told that my first Jewish friend was here, a man I remember with a lot of respect, but I didn't see him yet in the room, former ambassador to Albania, Ehud Gol. So pleased to see you, Ambassador, and you were the first Jew to tell me how tough it was, and I'm very thankful. In these 7 years, in the relations between Albania and Israel, as well as between Albanians and Jews, good things have happened. But unfortunately for the world, there have been 7 years of bitterness, of grievance when it comes to the spread of anti-Semitism, violent extremism, hate speech, and so many networks of divisiveness and disinformation. And here we are yet in this dinner generously offered by a man I really admire for his great spirit, Alexander, and surrounded by so many Jewish friends, included the Albanian Jewish friends from the distinguished Albanian Jewish community. And nothing but a psalm could truly help turn our feelings in this very moment into meaningful words. Behold how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell in unity. It is like the precious oil on the hand, running down on the beard of Aaron, running down on the collar of his robes. It is like the dew of Hermon, which falls on the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord has commanded the blessing, life forevermore. What unites us as brothers is anything but a dream. To visit Israel in commemoration of this fact is a true honor and privilege, and I'm delighted as an Albanian that it keeps being cherished and not forgotten with time. It is a known fact that Albania was a friend of the Jewish community in their darkest hour, a fact we take pride in. The selfless part of our grandfathers have taken in this speechless endeavor to rescue human lives, Jew lives, is maybe a direct path that leads to heavens. But above all, it is what binds us in an unwavering fashion to the best of mankind. It is only fair to recall that from 1932 to 1945, during the most terrific upsurge of National Socialism and the Nazi invasion, Albania retained all the same the Jewish community as a religious community in its own right, imposing sanctions to anyone who would attempt or violate its rights. And there is a fact not known to many Jews and even Jewish friends of mine, that Albania at that time passed the only positive discrimination law all over Europe, such as to publicly worship the Shabbat and not be required to work that day. What Albanians from all confessions and all social strata, from the king to the shepherd, have done to rescue Jews and to ensure the welfare of remnant of the people of Israel until the thunderstorm cleared, empowers our consciousness that as a people we are created for great deeds which can make us worthy to one another and worthy to the entire mankind. Worthy of the entire mankind indeed, for how else can a nation's policy be described when in 1943, 1944, under the direct pressure of the Wehrmacht, the collaborationist government in place itself, together with the four main religious chiefs of the country, accepted to deliver to the Nazi the reserve assets of the treasury, but together categorically refused to hand over the list of the Jews sheltered in the country, especially the foreigners, the stateless, and the homeless among them. As the identification of all the Jews that forced to leave their homes during the Nazi anti-Semite breakthrough found shelter and protection in Albania and had their lives saved from exterminations comes to completion, we become more and more certain that the number of the Jews rescued in Albania is much more considerable than the number of 2,265 displayed since 2005 at the Memorial Museum of Holocaust. And last year, I had the honor to give to the Honorable Director of Yad Vashem the new list of 3,750 names. This number may appear to be somehow prophetic when one looks at the history. There were 3,000 Hebrews in 70-73, shortly after the destruction of the temple, that found shelter in Albania. I'm bringing it here because there are not many people yet among the Jewish community that know the story, but also among them who know the story, not many are aware that it's not just the Second World War. And it's not just the Besa. It goes far in history. And so these 3,000 Hebrews, after they successfully hijacked a Roman vessel, carrying them to be held in slavery, birthed in the Albanian shores and founded flourishing cities like Phoenike or Jericho. About 3,000 were also the Sephardim Jews, fleeing the Reconquista in Spain and Portugal at the end of the 15th century, to whom Albania, and especially the urban area of Vlora, offered freedom, security, and prosperity. In 2018, we opened a small but nice museum called Solomon in Berat, dedicated to the history of the Jews in Albania. And now we are setting up a Jewish museum in Vlora, in the Jewish Road, at the historic city center. In this city, an important center of the Albanian Jewish community, there was for many years a Jewish-owned cafe called Israeli Patisserie. In the words of its owners, Albania was among the rare countries in the entire world where a small business could carry the Star of David in the storefront and be so wholeheartedly embraced by all local community. And it's not by chance that we choose Vlora as a city. Our shared history and friendship will be commemorated in a museum. The Albanian Jewish Museum will be a modern institution that will keep this history alive and will show future generations that Albanian hospitality is not a mere expression. But in the same time, we are working to build in the center, in the heart of our capital city, a Jewish cultural center, which will be a museum that will, again, make sure that everyone does not forget the Second World War, but also a contemporary Jewish center of culture, art, politics, customs, and everything else that will introduce our people to Israel. And at the same time, I will tell you that not only the not entire story of the coexistence between Albanians and Jews started with the Second World War, and not only it's a story that took together centuries, but it is important to never forget that Jews in Albania were saved by Muslims and Christians, by Albanian families that have put before their own religious identity, their human identity in line. They stayed true to the old saying that the Albanian home belongs to God and the guest, but not the guest you necessarily invite, but the one that wants to be helped, the one that knocks at your door, the one that may be unknown to you, but that you have the obligation to shelter and to protect. And so far, there are 73 Albanians, Muslims and Christians, that have been recognized as righteous among the nations, and many others, including high-ranking officials of that time, still waiting to be recognized as such. And I was sharing today with some Israeli friends the incredible story of the collaborationist government, the puppet Nazi government in Albania, made by Albanians, which made an ordeal to take off jail 4 Jews that were arrested by the Nazi command, and they approved a decree of 1,500 golden coins for each of the Jews, and begging the Nazi command to let them free, because for them it would be a shame to not try. And these 4 Jews were freed. Last year, we put up a memorial for the victims of Holocaust in a very populated area of our capital city. And the memorial inscription reads in English, Hebrew, and Albanian: Albanians, Christians, and Muslims endangered their lives to protect and save the Jews. And we are very much aware that what our grandfathers made is not simply a bright chapter of our history, but it's more than this. It's a national heritage treasure. And we need, and we will do everything to cherish it and to make sure that our kids and the kids of our kids realize how precious this part of our national heritage treasure is. In the same time, for Albania, it comes natural to stand firm against anti-Semitism. And as we are in government, we have done everything to make sure that our country is always in the front line against anti-Semitism, because as I try to always explain, it's not about Israel, it's not about the Jewish people, it's about humans. And it's about understanding how important it is to not engage in any form of revenge or in any form of insulting attitude towards others because of their different background, being ethnic, being religious. Israel is strong enough today to protect itself, but the world should understand that fighting anti-Semitism is not protecting Israel. It's protecting its own values, it's protecting its own principles, it's protecting its own self. And without taking more of your time, although it's never a good idea to have a man from the Balkans and Albania speak during a dinner because you risk to end without eating, I want to finish my speech with Sasha. I can't describe how I felt when I saw Sasha appearing with a group of Jewish people without announcing himself at the door of my office to ask me to help their Afghans. When I say their Afghans, I mean that what happened during the NATO pulling out from Afghanistan was really a very heavy test for all the NATO countries vis-à-vis their obligation to not leave behind at least the Afghans that were there for us, that worked for us, that believed in us, that exposed themselves because of what we represented for them. And I thought since the very first second that Albania couldn't shy away like richer and bigger countries did. And we had to open our door and to welcome with our possibilities these Afghans that otherwise would be victims of Taliban's revenge. Because we didn't have religious Talibans, but we had atheist Talibans ruling Albania for half a century, keeping us isolated, telling us that the three devils, the three heads of devil were American imperialism, Soviet social imperialism, and Jewish Zionism. And so we did. We did it. And we didn't do it just for the Afghans. We did it for ourselves. We did it for our kids. We did it for who we are. We did it for the memory. Because we may not be rich, but we have still a very sound memory. And this is very important. So when Sasha came and asked me to do whatever we could for their Afghans, it was really something that will stay with me for life. Because I immediately understood, I immediately felt that it was a Jew feeling that he owed something to some other people of a completely different background, of a totally different religion, but that at that precise moment of history were threatened to be eliminated, exactly like your predecessors. And this is how it should be. And this is why anti-Semitism is a cause for everyone, not just for Israel or for Jewish people. And this is why being against anti-Semitism is not a flag of Israel, but is keeping the flag of humanity. Thank you very much. And let me wish I was not boring and my speech was worth you stopping eating. Thank you.
We want you to stay for another minute.
Mr. Prime Minister.
And I would like to invite again to the stage Mr. Alexander Mashkevich, together with Mr. Mikhail Miralashvili. We have some small award gift for you, Mr. Prime Minister, if you can.
Just want to express my gratitude for this beautiful, beautiful object, which is much more than an object, and I guess I understand the meaning, and I hope I'm worth it. My Albanian fellows here, they know very well what I mean when I say to all the Jewish non-Albanian present, come to Albania, and when you visit, you will realize that not only me, but the Albanian people is worth this thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.